Halo is known for having major art style changes throughout its existence. Most categorize it as two distinct camps, classic and modern, or Bungie versus 343. Most don't bother to look into it, but Halo has far more distinct art direction changes than just these two, namely the jump from Combat Evolved, the first game, to Halo 2 and subsequently Halo 3, which is the game when the aforementioned classic art style really came into its own. Now, I ask the question, what if it remained unchanged from CE? How would things look different if they kept that same style, regardless of graphical updates or changing tastes in art direction? Hello and welcome to Halo Revolved. This is a series where I take designs from games released after Halo Combat Evolved and redesign them to better fit the specific niche and Halo's art direction that game had. So, without further ado, let's go over the specifics. So, what's Revolved setting out to do exactly? Since the series fits into more of a niche than, say, fellow YouTuber Vernissage's redesigning Halo series, love you by the way, as well as having a less clear name, some may be confused as to what my goal is. This is not a general redesign series, but rather targeting the specific aesthetic that Combat Evolved had. Not Halo 2, not Halo 3, not even fucking Halo Spartan Assault, only CE. As a result, designs may look a bit out there for people that aren't fully acclimated to that art direction. Looking at you, the one person who plays on anniversary graphics. Because I can't pull from just anywhere, I have to look at either finished models from Combat Evolved, concept art or work-in-progress models, or the characters, creatures, and designs that influence the artists and modelers working on Halo back in the late 90s. I've amassed a decent collection of the stuff over the past few years, most of it being used for another project that just happened to come in handy here. So, why don't I use some of that for a little lesson, It's time to school you silly little scrimblas on how we do it in these parts. What's the first thing that pops into your head when you think Halo? Chances are it's this guy. He's my dad. This specifically is how he looked in Halo 3, which is how many think of him. Pretty good example of the Halo art style, trademarked, copyrighted, all rights reserved by Microsoft Corporation. Each part of his armor ends in an abrupt cut, giving it a very blocky shape language as a result. But that's not to say those blocks are super simplistic, no. There's extrusions and panel lighting and a bunch of other shit that gives him plenty to look at. There's a weight to it, and it feels nice and tangible. Realistic even, given the more lifelike materials and shaders. Well, let's see how he looked in Combat Evolved then. Pretty different, no? Where there's an extrusion at the knee plate, it's a singular block. The belt isn't made of segments and a collection of smaller shapes, it's one solid piece. There's far less detail, which gives the lighting more of a chance to characterize him. Perhaps the most famous example of the simpler design language in this armor is the helmet, which completely lacks those lines or raised surfaces in the visor. Instead, it's just a simple visor with the reflection of the sun visor above it, giving the helmet eyes. A lot of CE's character and charm came from not only the lighting, but the materials affected. Chief looks a lot more metallic with a heavy layer of grit in Combat Evolved, lacking that flat matte finish that the Halo 3 design had. This doesn't just affect the Chief, the Covenant have the same thing going on. Elites, grunts, hunters, even jackals, despite the limited armor they have, convey through color and material a lot more than they do detail in the armor itself. These design cues are pulled from a variety of sources, with the human designs sporting a more blocky and utilitarian look inspired by the movies Aliens and Starship Troopers. Comparatively, the Covenant designs are influenced by anime, with the elites bearing a subtle resemblance to Eva units from the series Neon Genesis Evangelion. Real-world inspiration was also used, with redesigns to the player character early on being steered in a more tank-like direction, after this design here was pitched as one of the first conceptual pieces for Master Chief. This was ultimately changed, but the design's influence is still felt in the more simple, rounded armor plating, as well as the inclusion of pouches and the distinctive helmet design. Even with the distinctions made between the UNSC and Covenant designs, human characters still utilize far rounder and chunkier shapes, with less detail covering the design. Plate sizing on Marines is exaggerated heavily as well, likely a holdover from the RTS phase of development. Since Halo started life as a real-time strategy game, characters and creatures needed their proportions to be exaggerated to compensate for the bird's eye view. It's my hypothesis that the Marines and their armor plating, as well as a myriad of other designs, have their distinctive exaggerated proportions because of that. Even the weapons look drastically different between games. The proportions and the detailing look less like a piece of believable military hardware and appear far more stylized. It looks more like something you'd see in Cowboy Bebop or Ghost in the Shell than it does a real-world firearm. Even the aforementioned aliens and Starship Troopers weren't this out there with how they looked. They had that tangible and grounded feel that Halo 3 has. As an aside, note that I'm not criticizing the functionality of the guns, I'm just saying that they look a little more cartoonish compared to other Halo titles. Don't kill me, please. As for the Covenant, their inspirations are a tad more varied than the UNSC's. The species themselves pull more from real-life animals, and their armor and gear has a shiny, smooth appearance to it with lots of vibrant colors. You won't spot hyper-detailed character designs here, but these otherwise simple characters and creatures are given life through these iridescent shaders applied to their armor. In that way, it almost evokes something like a beetle's armor with how shiny and smooth it is. This of course bleeds over into their weapons, gear, vehicles, etc. Later on, Covenant designs would get more detailed and become less shiny than they were in CE, much to my 8-brain's dismay. Shapes would become more complex, more little lights and shield emitters were added, and colors would get duller. This isn't just a Covenant thing, of course. Human and Forerunner designs would too see their colors fade and their details detailing, which I suppose leads me to a conclusion of sorts. What defines Combat Evolved's look? As if I haven't already stated it enough, the hallmarks of Halo CE's aesthetic are simple shapes, vibrant colors, unique shaders, and a penchant for exaggerating proportions for aesthetic purposes. It wasn't too concerned with looking hyper-realistic, and would thus largely embrace its non-lifelike qualities in the majority of the biped models. It pulls much of the specifics from sci-fi films and anime that the people working at Bungie enjoyed, and that can be seen throughout the various characters, items, and worlds they made for Halo. Now, all of this to say, so what? What's so interesting about CE that would warrant making a whole series about redesigning future characters and weapons? If I go ahead and put these two Master Chiefs side by side again, now armed with the knowledge fed to you by an autistic cat girl with a hyperfixation, you can see what I mean when I say there's a pretty big difference in not only design philosophy, but presentation as well. By Halo 3, that pseudo-stylized look to everything was thoroughly ditched in favor of greater realism, now offered by the brand new Xbox 360 hardware, which is definitely known for its reliable and long-lasting quality. Just the way characters and weapons are shown in these games is so divorced from the initial look CE pioneered that it gets the brain thinking, what if some of these new designs had somehow made it into CE? And so I made this. It's a thought exercise for me to get this continually nagging question off my mind, as well as something fun for you folks at home to watch while enjoying fine dining. It's a win-win, I think. And with that, that's Revolved, explained. I felt the need to make a little primer, just in case some folks maybe got a little confused and misremembered CE. The community's kind of made a nasty habit out of lumping it in with Halo 2 and 3, and just stating they all look the same when they really don't. You'd think with how much the art style debate has plagued the Halo community over the years, they would have figured out some of the nuances between the games quicker, but instead it's just fighting over developers. Oh well. Each game has its own unique look, and in this case I decided to choose the most different out of the three in the original trilogy. It owes itself to a lot of unique and different challenges that you might not otherwise see in fan reworks. Also, hyperfixation. Halo 1 art make my brain happy, so I simply make more of it. That's all I had to say. I hope you enjoyed this little aside, and I hope you like the rest of the Revolved series as well. See ya Starside! Wait, is this the first normal outro I've ever made? Holy shit!